Just a heads up, this is not a build video. I am nowhere near done with the DLC, and these quote-unquote builds are nowhere near completion. But I have had some time to throw together some pretty interesting things, showing two earlier weapons I've come across in the DLC. I will talk about no story spoilers. Again, I will just be showing those two weapons that I have come across, and that's about it. I'll just be invading in Bellat, which I think is one of the best invasion zones From Software has ever given us. I'll show you my first build a little bit later on, but the second build was actually inspired by this enemy. I found this weapon very early in the DLC, and this build, quote-unquote build, revolves around two things. This weapon, which again I will not name, but if you want to find it, you can look it up on the wiki. Again, no spoilers in this video. And the Deflecting hard tier, which is again from another early game DLC boss, which I will also not spoil here. Revolves around two things. The Deflecting hard tier, if you perfect block, it will give you essentially no stamina loss. And you will take no damage unless it's like an incantation or there's some elemental damage. No physical damage, I think, is what it is. And so when I came across that enemy and he was doing this, I didn't know that you could do this yet. So when I found the Deflecting hard tier and had this weapon, I was like, this is perfect. This is awesome. This is the playstyle I want to do for the second build. I went back and went ahead and paused what I was doing with my first character to go ahead and make this. But now I'm back on the first character again. AM BRTRUDE has a very similar build to this, which I came across during the process of making this video after I'd kind of started this playstyle. So I'll link that down below. It's pretty cool. He uses a great hammer instead. So if you're interested at all in that, you should go watch that video. I'll put it down below. Now I go a little bit back and forth on this tier. Part of me thinks it's a little bit too strong, but also part of me thinks, well, it's a skill component. You have to perfectly time it, and you're taking a big risk by doing so. So I don't know if this is worthy of being looked at or examined by From Software, or this is a perfectly valid playstyle. It's a little bit too early to tell for all of this yet. But I can tell you, it is super rewarding, especially on this weapon. Now, you know, essentially, this tier would work on any weapon that you can get in the DLC or the main game. What I like about the tier on this weapon particularly is, again, that enemy made it look really cool, so I wanted to use it. But katanas have a very fast guard counter. So when I am using this weapon and someone hits me, I do the perfect block with the tier, and I get the guard counter off. It comes off very quickly. If I catch them with that guard counter, I can usually follow up with the weapon art very quickly and get damage on them. If they try to roll away, I can usually hit them with the second part of the weapon art. So it's a very flowy kind of combo weapon style, invasion style, character style, I guess. And it just feels very, very good to land. Now, it's not very strong. I don't think that this character is perfectly tuned out for this weapon. I'm going to look at it and maybe retool it a little bit. This build's only level 110. Like, I just put together the build that I had really quickly that would fit this weapon and brought it into the DLC. So it's nowhere near optimized. I think it will probably do more damage, but I don't necessarily want it to do more damage. I'm glad that it's not doing a ton of damage, because then again, like, I'm putting all of my damage stats behind the guard counter, the talismans, everything. So that's where the damage comes from. I can hit people for like 800 damage with that guard counter, follow up with the weapon art afterwards, get another 300, 400 damage, which again is not much, but that combined is like 1100, 1200 damage, and that's a ton of damage. I don't really feel like I want to do more than that afterwards, so it feels very, very balanced. And as you'll see in this invasion, I was also experimenting a little bit with the monk weapon arts, which I said I would never do, but you know, DLC comes out and things change. Now, because it's so early, we don't know yet what all From Software is going to absolutely nuke or buff or anything like that. It's too early. We're all having too much fun. Let's not talk about all that stuff yet. I've seen one thing, possibly two things that might be a little bit too overtuned. One thing I know because I've seen it and it's absolutely nuts. But That's okay. This is the early part of the game. We're all having a wild time. We're all having fun. We can worry about balancing and stuff later on. So let's just enjoy it while we got it. Alright, now let's talk about Bellat for a second. No spoilers on the bosses in this area, no spoilers about any of the enemies besides what you can see in the background. Plus, I'm kind of assuming most people have gone through Bellat already if you had the DLC. It's pretty early on if you choose to go this direction. I guess some people could have not, but it's pretty obviously just right there. This is one of the coolest legacy dungeons From Software has ever made. It gives big Ring City vibes, but that's just a very easy comparison, and everyone's going to make it. It's super vertical. There's a lot of really cool enemies. A lot of enemies that can really help out invaders in this space. A lot of places you can retreat. The verticality turns back around on itself, so you can find all sorts of hidden ways to run host parties through the map, get on top of rooftops, get behind them. I spent like a good portion of all of these invasions just sneaking up on people on rooftops, getting behind them, using the finger to kind of maneuver my way around different hosts and phantoms. And I got a lot of kills this way. It really worked, especially one particular gank party who had pretty much destroyed everything in the level, and I'm fairly certain we're just running around with fingerprint shields and the Antspur rapier, which is kind of funny because you would think that if they were ganking this level they would try to find new weapons, but maybe it's just too early. I don't understand people like that, but that's their prerogative. They can do that if they want to. Anyway, I was able to hide, kind of drag out the fight in the invasion, and eventually, by a little bit of a sneaky maneuver, get up behind the host with a new hyper armor value on the kick, got through the fingerprint shield, and ended that after about 30 minutes. So that was a pretty fun little thing to do. Anyway, it's just a super cool area, and it's one of my favorite invasion spots I've ever done. Alright, now this is the main build I put together for the DLC, and I'll show you kind of its thing here in a second, and you can figure it out for yourself, and then I'll explain it. So, essentially what I'm doing is I'm using Stamp Sweep on the Greatsword, which I was using long before the DLC came out. I was trying to really master this playstyle and moveset. Getting that guaranteed knockdown on Stamp Sweep if I hit them, if I time it right. And then for the Wake Up, doing the Blink Bolt from the Twin Axes. So I call this the Sable Cross because, edgy name I know, because the sword, the Greatsword is black or sable, and it does, the Stamp Sweep does like a horizontal swing around you, with the Blink Bolt doing a straight up, like moving forward, roll catch spin. So again, it's kind of cross-like, you can call it whatever you want to. It's an edgy name, I thought it was kind of funny, so that's what I'm gonna call it. Now, I can see this weapon being a little bit annoying in the DLC, not in the sense that I think it's going to be overpowered, but I think it's going to be very easily spammable. From what I've seen so far, if people see it coming, they can easily roll it. They can also knock you out of it. It doesn't seem to have a ton of hyper armor. I know that with the actual backhand blades, when I was trying to queue up the weapon art, I was easily being hit out of it. Now, I don't know how much hyper armor the actual backhand blades have. I know that blind spot is really strong, so that's something that I'm not really sure of yet. I haven't tested it, but I know there's a lot of counters to this if you just try to spam it on its own, but that's not what I'm doing, right? I'm waiting to use the Gugs as the main thing, getting that Stamp Sweep off, and when they are knocked on the ground, when I've got it, when I've landed that, I'm immediately transitioning into the combo as a roll catch with the Undead Knight Twin Axes, and here I'll show it to you again. Boom, perfect. That's so cool. Again, I don't know how this weapon's going to play out. Like, I need to see it with a bunch of hosts and phantoms all using it at one time, or how spammable it is. But right now, this is a combo for this build, quote-unquote build. I keep saying build. These aren't builds. These are just early things that I'm doing. This is pretty fun. Again, that's kind of the premise for this build. There's not really a whole lot more around it. I was going to make it a little bit more of something using the Horned Warriors swords, not the twin swords you're seeing here. I was just using the ash on these to get people to move forward in the level, which is actually a really, really good, like, if people are... To me, it worked in a similar fashion as using the mist to get people out of rooms, get people moving forward. It worked really, really well to do that. Now, it has some limitations. If you're at the top of some stairs and you try to do it, it will stop at the stairs. If you try to do it through a wall, you can't lock onto it. It will just go to the wall and hit the wall in front of you. So you have to be clearly looking at the player. You have to be on the same level, or at least below, I think, maybe. Not above for it to work, but that is a weapon art will work really well. And I said that there, and it just worked on stairs. So maybe it's more just from how you can see them. Anyway, I haven't figured it out yet, but I wanted to use the Horned Warriors. There's a Horned Warrior in here. I don't know what it's called, the weapon, but they have a curved greatsword, or what I think is a curved greatsword. And I wanted to see what that was. And so I farmed it for like 6 hours. I got 10 pieces of the helmet, 10 pieces of the armor, 10 pieces of everything but the weapon. And it took me a really long time to realize that I don't think From Software is going to let me have this weapon. Maybe I can't get it yet. So I still haven't proven that, but I mean, I've never had to farm a weapon so long in my life, and I just had to give up on it. So I'm assuming I'll be able to get it later on. Also, if you're having any issues at all with parties in this level, just lure them to these Horned Warriors. These guys do absolutely the work of Miyazaki in this. They are great if you can't get a co-invader, and sometimes co-invaders are not that great. So oftentimes, these guys are even better. These are great PvE to help funnel down and beat down enemies. They're wonderful, and you should absolutely use them if you have access to them. So that's pretty much it. That's all I really wanted to talk about. I know there's a lot of gaps in commentary in this video. I don't have a whole lot to say yet. There's not a whole lot to say yet. We're still figuring all these things out. I will say this, though. This, so far, there's only been a handful of times, that I have been on the ground, like the ground floor, for when a From Software game has come out. Part of the PvE, all the new stuff, part of the PvP and invasions, all of it. I played Dark Souls 3, but I didn't get my start. I didn't get to play at the very start of Dark Souls 3, so I missed out on that. I did get to play at the start of Elden Ring, but I was just starting to slowly craft a channel then. And now I have an established channel, and I'm getting to be able to partake on the ground floor of the DLC now in a From Software game. And it's just incredible. I'm having so much fun. I'm so excited that I have a platform to show you guys things on this. It's going to be great. We're going to have a good time. So yeah, tune in for more. But for right now, I'm going to go silent until I actually beat the DLC, and then you can expect some things from me after that. When there's actual balance patches, when the game is in a more steady state, when I can actually quote-unquote make a real build. But until right now, you can enjoy the Sekiro Starblade or whatever it's called. I'm not telling you what it's called. You can find it. And the Sable Cross, the little stupid technique I made. Anyway, you'll have fun. I'm going to have fun. I will talk to you soon. Peace.